Welcome back to another episode of A Better Way of Earning podcast. If you've ever submitted dozens of applications and wondered why you never received a response, you're not alone. Many talented, capable people struggle to navigate today's hiring process because they've been taught a version of hiring that no longer reflects reality. The public playbook tells us that if we get the right degree, build a resume, and apply for jobs, opportunities will eventually come our way. But today's workforce is drastically changing. Employers are looking for more than education and experience. They're looking for communication skills, adaptability, problem solving abilities, and evidence that a candidate can create value. In today's episode, we're pulling back the curtain on how hiring actually works. We'll explore what employers are looking for, why resumes often get overlooked, how to stand out in interviews, and how you can position yourself for opportunities even when you don't meet every qualification listed in a job posting. Because understanding how hiring works isn't just important, it's a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned. Let's dive in. The core question today is, why do qualified people often get overlooked? When employers evaluate candidates, they are not looking only at your education, experience, or whether someone appears qualified on paper anymore. They are really trying to determine whether the person can not only perform the work, but contribute to the team and grow with their organization. In most hiring decisions, employers are looking for four core qualities: skills, can you do the work and meet the expectation of the role? Reliability, can they trust you to show up, follow through, and take responsibility? Communication, can you listen, respond clearly, and work well with others? And adaptability, can you learn, adjust, and stay effective even when things change? Let's dive into the public playbook. And if this is your first episode, let me give you a brief description of our trademark public playbook and what it means. The public playbook for us is a collection of messages, assumptions, and rules many of us are taught to follow when we're trying to succeed. These are the ideas we often hear from family, school, society, social media, and even workplace culture. Some of these messages begin with very good intentions, but they quickly can become limiting when we follow them without questioning whether they still apply. In this episode, the public playbook says, if I have the right degree and a good resume, I'll get hired. And my friends, for a long time, that belief made sense. Many people were taught that education plus a polished resume was the formula for career access. If you earned the credential, listed the right experience, and submitted a professional resume, then opportunity would quickly follow. But today's hiring environment is more complex. Employers are not only asking, is this person qualified? They are also asking, can this person solve the problems we have? Can they communicate well? Can they adapt? Can they work with our team? Can they demonstrate the skills listed on the resume? That is where the myth begins to break down. A degree and resume may open the door, but they do not automatically move a candidate through the hiring process. Hiring decisions are influenced by the timing, clarity, networking, interview performance, employer needs, applicant tracking systems, referrals, communication style, and the ability to connect experience to results. So when we talk about the public playbook, we're not just saying that the advice is completely wrong. we are saying it is now incomplete. The better question is not simply, do I look qualified on paper? The better question, my friends, is, am I showing the hiring manager or employer how my skills, experience, and value connect to what they actually need? Knowledge builder number one, the employable equation. Employability equals skills plus communication plus reliability plus adaptability. Not just a degree, not just experience, the combination of all. As we dive deeper into your employability equation, we first must have to address why resumes get ignored. A resume is not just a list of jobs you have held, it is a communication tool. Its job is to help an employer quickly understand what you can do, how you have created value, and why you may be worth interviewing. Many qualified candidates get overlooked because their resume does not clearly connect their experience to the needs of the role. In today's hiring process, resumes may be reviewed by technology first, then scanned quickly by a recruiter or hiring manager, which means that clarity, relevance, and evidence now matter more than ever. Back to the public playbook. The public playbook often tells people if I list my education, job titles, and responsibilities, we know what that is. This the bullet points. Employers will see that I'm qualified. That advice again sounds reasonable because most of us were taught to think of a resume as a record of our work history. But employers are not reading your resume only to learn where you've worked. They're trying to decide whether your background solves the problem that they are hiring for. Let me say that again. A job posting isn't just a job posting, it is a solution to the problem that the employer finds themselves in and that they are currently hiring for. I repeat that because oftentimes we love our resumes, right? Some of us have 50 to 75 resume templates all in there. AI has refined and taken keywords and target words and made you a new resume, and it's nice and polished and shiny and it looks really great to us. But if you don't truly understand what that industry and employers issue is that they need someone to solve, then you may be completely far off. So let's talk about some common reasons resumes get ignored. Generic resumes. This resume looks like it could be sent to any employer for any role. Now, I know, again, rule of thumb was have one or two core resumes that may have some adjustments, but you want to make sure that your resume is polished, clean, and reveals the same things. Again, when you are now running these generic resumes through a AI or a technology screening tool, then there is nothing that will encourage that technology to make your generic your resume to stand out if it's just as generalized as everyone else's resume. So it's just something to think about. Another big thing that really hinders your resume from being seen is you have not listed any clear accomplishments. Your resume lists responsibilities, but does not show what the person improved, solved, supported, led, created, or achieved. And that means data. That means numbers, percentages. And be careful, be careful, be careful on just making some shit up. I'm just saying. Don't do that. Because again, in this world of technology and AI, the improvements that it brings is quite impressive, but it also can work against you. So if you put some unreasonable percentages out there because you think that the higher the percentage or the higher the number, it makes you look good, if the actual data or proof of success in some of these skills or areas is having a lower number, but you have this extremely high number because you don't know, because you just had AI to make up some stuff for you, then you have not solved the accomplishment side of your resume. So, why is this important? Especially this to talk about. If you are currently working, but you are thinking about making a career change or moving jobs or applying for something else or even interdepartmentally wanting to grow your career, begin now to track those improvements, the solutions, the support, what you led, what you created, and what you achieved so that you don't have to sit in front of your laptop or desktop or do people still use desktop these days? Okay, sorry. Um, or your cell phone, and have to think back 5 years or 3 years or 10 years of accomplishments and it not be clear. So begin to chart your stuff so that you can have some actual trackable data of your clear accomplishments. Enough on that. Um, the third reason, no customization. This resume does not reflect the language, priorities, or requirements of the specific job posting, which means let's take the word technology or IT. That's better. With the hundreds of variations of what goes under the umbrella of information technology, if you are applying for a job and you don't understand the lingo, how it works, and the requirements up in that specific area, then it's going to quickly show on your resume because you have not customized it to prove to the technology screening tool and or the hiring manager that you are fully capable of executing their need. Next one, no evidence of impact. The resume says what you did, but not why it matters. And I know this is just going to throw some people off because, again, for decades, we've been taught the one page resume rule and everything has to be concise and narrowed down to bullet points, et cetera, et cetera. But in today's time, that strict condensement of what you've done may work against you, depending on the industry and depending on the position that you're applying for. We can dive deeper into resumes in a later episode, or I will put in the podcast space some places where you guys can that we are creating where you can go to and actually get more information on this skill. Unclear positioning is the final one that we'll talk about. The employer has to work hard to understand your strengths, direction, and fit. If you have allowed AI to create a generic resume based off of broad space information, and the person that is looking at that resume has to really try to understand what you're trying to say, it's not going to happen, my friends. Take it from a 20-year HR vet. When you're hiring for a position, it's not just one resume. You don't really have the luxury to sit down and really dive deeper into the resume and do a lot of research in it and bond with it, etc. You have hundreds to thousands of resumes that come across your computer in every day. You also have the pressure of the operator or the manager that's looking to have that position filled. And so that type of moving pieces, if someone has to really, really dissect what you're trying to say, are more likely to just move it to the side and find something that is more clear and concise based off of the needs than to sit for 30 minutes, an hour to try to decipher what you're trying to convey. Just a little tip for you. Moving into or further diving into discussing the resume, I want to provide you with what I call the resume clarity test. Before submitting a resume, ask if a recruiter only had a few seconds to review this, which is reality. I'm not exaggerating. A few seconds to review this. Would they understand why I should be the one being interviewed? A strong resume should always answer 3 questions clearly. What role am I positioned for? What skills and experience make me a fit? What evidence shows I can create value? The shift is simple but powerful. Your resume should not merely say, here are the jobs I've had. It should say, here is the value I can bring into this role. Before I finish that, I want to interject, especially for my new job seekers entering into their beginning of the career. I'm oftentimes asked, what if I don't have a large history or a long history? That's okay. We all had to start somewhere. But if you take not only just the job roles that you've had, but you really expound on the skills, the knowledge, and the hands on experience that you've gained, even outside of a formal position, it still will impress more of your value on the resume than to just bullet point that one job that you've had and leave it at that. So there are ways for you to really showcase what you would bring to that position and how you could be the candidate to solve the very problem that they're trying to solve. But it takes time. It takes for you to work on this and build this skill up so that your resume can stand out. When you as a candidate understand this, you can stop treating your resume like a storage document and start treating it like a strategy document. This is how resumes move from being ignored to becoming an invitation for a deeper conversation. Our knowledge builder number 3, the STAR interview formula. Because we spent some time in our knowledge builder number 2, it talking about the resume clarity test. Knowledge builder number 1 is the employable equation, which again is helping you to really understand what makes you employable outside of your degree and experience, how they both combine together to give someone the picture that you are employable. Number 2, the resume clarity test will stop you from having to make multiple resumes that are being ignored, that are unclear or off the mark of what recruiters, hiring managers, HR professionals are really looking for. In order for us to complete this out and give you all the information necessary, now we need to talk about you put your resume in, you get a call back. So I want to give you the STAR interview formula to help you to land the job now. And the STAR interview formula helps you as a candidate to turn your interview answers into clear, organized stories. Instead of giving vague responses or trying to sound perfect, the framework that I'm going to give you helps you to explain what happened, what you were responsible for, what you did, and what changed because of your actions. Use the star when an interviewer asks questions such as, tell me about a time when, or give me an example of. And here's what the acronym STAR stands for. S stands for situation. What was happening? T stands for task. What were you responsible for? A stands for action. What specific steps did you take? And R equals results. And what happened because of your actions? And I keep emphasizing you and your because your team isn't there during your interview. So if you were on a team project or you had a school project or something that you did in your work environment with the department all poured into the results or whatever, back to what I advised earlier in the podcast, you need to start documenting what your contributions were and what that data and monetary or numerical change happened because of your input, because that's what is going to shape and escalate and elevate your interview with the person that you're one on one with. Do you understand what I'm saying? What your team did is great, but if you don't know what your contributions are, then you're not able to articulate that so that the person that's interviewing you can understand your standalone results. So let's dissect this just a little bit. How to use the STAR formula. 1, situation. Set the scene. If anybody's ever told you during an interview that you have to be choppy, short, etc., then it, again, the information may be incomplete. Because if you are engaging with the person that's interviewing you, time is not a problem. They want to know more. Interviewers are less or more turned off by incomplete answers than for you to set the scene or tell the story. Now, having said that, because I don't need every HR professional who is now listening to this podcast, you have now looked at your phone, your radio, or your computer, however you're listening to this, and you are now saying some really, really bad words to me. Let me be clear. Doesn't mean you have infinite time to take up people's time. It means that utilizing this STAR formula is not something that you try to do right live in front of the interview. It takes for you to collect your data, get your results, formulate the story so that you can articulate it in a very concise and timely manner so that they can understand your contribution to the success of said project, said department, said company. Is that better, HR professional? I'm here. I'm on your side. I'm just saying. But let's unpack this. The situation, set the scene. Briefly describe the challenge, opportunity, or circumstance. Keep this short so the interviewer understands the context without getting lost in unnecessary details. Okay? Unnecessary details. Not how did they get to the problem? I was working for a company, and for the past 10 years, what everybody was saying was they never addressed the problem. And then whenever we got into the department, it just became it's unnecessary details. They don't really care. That's not their company. So set the scene. Set the scene means that in my department, we were challenged with taking the cost of goods down 10%. That's the scene. Here's another example. Our team was struggling to meet project deadlines because communication between departments was inconsistent. That's the scene. Number 2, task. Explain your responsibility. That means clarify your role in the situation. This helps the employer understand what you were accountable for and how your contribution mattered. Example, I was responsible for coordinating updates between departments and keeping the project timeline visible to the teams. Another example, I analyzed the communication breakdown and brought to them 2 different options for better communication style that fits the team better or improve the team. Number 3, action. Describe what you did. Focus on the specific steps that you took. This is where you, as the candidate, should emphasize ownership, problem solving, communication, leadership, or initiative. I created a shared tracking system, scheduled weekly update meetings, and made sure each department knew what information was needed before the next deadline. Do you see how this is tying together? You set the scene. They were struggling to meet project deadlines because communication between the departments was inconsistent. Your responsibility was coordinating updates between the departments and keeping the project timeline visible to the team. What you did was I created a shared tracking system, scheduled weekly updated meetings, made sure each department knew what information was needed before the deadline. Or maybe your task, what you did was you took a poll around each department and found what was their best communication portal or access: email, text messages, chat, and created a tracking system that encompassed a more comfortable communication system to help them to stay engaged, whatever that is. But again, you are setting the scene, you're explaining your responsibility, you describe what you did, and finally, when that data comes in, you show the outcome. You explain what changed because of your specific actions. If it's possible, include measurable results. Now, measurables, my friends, is gold to an interviewer and an employer. Data is key. Was it that you improved communications, faster completion, stronger teamwork, reduced errors, or lesson learned? But if you can put data sets to each one of those improvements, then friend, when you can show the data sets, my friend, you have moved into what we call actualization, which means you've taken theory, which honestly, as someone is listening to your story, it's a theory for them. But you've now moved it from theory into concept of reality. And what did we talk about when we talked about the resume? The purpose of the resume is to show that employer or hiring manager that you can solve the very problem that they are hiring for. This is how you show them. Here's an example of how you complete that scene. The project was completed 2 weeks early. Communications improved by 10%, and the tracking system became part of our regular workflow to date. Quick formula: situation plus task plus action plus results equal a strong interview answer. Remember, employers do not just want to know what happened. They want to understand how you contributed to the outcome. The strongest interview answers are clear, honest, and connected to real experience. They do not have to be perfect, but they do need to show how you think, how you act, and how you create value. As we close this episode, let's pull the conversation together. Today, we challenge the idea that being qualified on paper is enough to get hired. We talked about what employers are really looking for, why resumes get ignored, and why interviews are not about perfection. They are about clarity, trust, communication, and demonstrated value. The thread running through all three of these segments is this: employers are not simply hiring credentials, they are hiring capability, reliability, communication, adaptability, judgment, and the ability to solve real problems inside of real work environments. So here's your closing challenge. First, identify 3 skills you possess that do not appear clearly on your resume. These may be skills like problem solving, calming difficult situation, training others, organizing chaos, adapting quickly, leading without a title. I just talked about it in the previous podcast, or communicating across different personalities, which, if you don't know this, that is a huge skill, especially for an employer that has multiple departments and diverse teams. They need to know that the leader that they're bringing in can communicate effectively across different personalities. Once you've done that, then the second step is to write down one real example for each skill. Think about the time that you use that skill to support a team, improve a process, solve a problem, help a customer, meet a deadline, or create better outcomes. Next, turn each example into evidence. Ask yourself, what was the situation? What was I responsible for? What action did I take? What changed because of my contribution? And finally, update how you present yourself. Use those examples to strengthen your resume. Prepare for interviews. Say that again. Prepare for interviews. It's not just about what your hair looks like, what your clothes look like, what kind of shoes you wear, and what time you show up. If you aren't prepared by researching the company that you're interviewing with, look at their trend, their data, their history, understand better, is this a culture that you want to be involved in? Is this a company that you want to build a career within? And most importantly, practice your STAR method so that when you walk in, you have less anxiety because you are now prepared. You want to make sure that you are always communicating the value that you bring with confidence. Do not leave your strongest skill hidden in your memory. Make them visible, make them specific, make them connected to results. And why does this matter now? This is so important, especially now in today's global competitive workforce. Work is changing rapidly. Technology, artificial intelligence, automations, remote collaboration, and global hiring have expanded the talent pool for employers. And not only am I saying this, and not only does social media tell you this, but the employers know that also. In many roles, you are no longer competing only with the person across town. You may be competing with candidates across the country or across the world. But that does not mean you should be afraid. We need to stop. Again, the reason that I created this podcast, A Better Way of Earning, is because I want to dispel the panic that a lot of our paid news and headlines are bringing us today. Oh, every job is going to be replaced by AI. You're not going to have work anymore. We shouldn't be afraid of people and skills, and we definitely should not enter into our workforce and career decisions based off the fact that somebody told us that we're going to become obsolete and not ever have a job for the rest of our life. I don't want you to be afraid. I want you to be better prepared. The candidates who stand out are not always the ones with the longest or the most blue chip companies that they have on their resume. They are actually the ones who clearly connect their skills to the needs of the role, communicate their value, adapt to change, and keep learning as a workplace evolves. The World Economic Forum has reported that employers expect a significant share of workers' core skills to change by 2030. With growing demand for analytical thinking, resilience, flexibility, agility, technological literacy, leadership, and lifelong learning. That confirms what many workers are already experiencing. The future belongs to people who can grow, adapt, communicate, and apply what they know in meaningful ways. So the goal is not just to get hired anymore. The goal is to become more employable, more adaptable, and more prepared for the opportunities that are coming next. Before we go, remember this: being overlooked never means you're unqualified. Sometimes it means your value has not been communicated clearly enough yet. A degree may open a door, a resume may start a conversation, an interview may create an opportunity, but your ability to show your skills, communicate your story, adapt to change, and create value is what helps you to move forward. So this week, take time to look at your resume, your interview examples, and the way you describe your experience. Ask yourself, am I only listing what I've done, or am I showing the value that I can bring? I want to thank each and every one of you again for joining me for another episode of A Better Way of Earning, where work, money, leadership, and life come together, helping you to build success on your own terms. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making your value visible.